In this video, we're going to talk about, would you go to a gay wedding as a Christian? Now, this is Rock Leach with Social Fire, and I'm not going to do an introduction or anything like that. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and react to With the Perry's podcast, where they talked about this subject here. Would you go to a gay wedding? Would you attend a gay wedding? And they both had two different answers. And I really appreciate the conversation because it lends value to a greater conversation. Now, when we look at this, it can be black and white, but there are some interesting things that are brought up here, interesting perspectives that are brought up here that I think we need to look at. And if you're not looking at With the Perrys, it's a great podcast. And I know I'm big on this channel about sharing what I believe that we need to boycott as far as artists, churches, ministries, different things of that nature. Well, I support this one. Not that I agree with a lot of things that they say. However, I do like their perspectives on different conversations. They have a lot of the hard conversations, and I do appreciate that. Let's go ahead and get into the video. Let's go.
Come on.
The way
We got time. It ain't 30 minutes with the Perrys no more. It's kind of like an hour and a half with the Perrys.
I think God cares about marriage because he created it. That's one. So he cares deeply about it. Two, when you get to Ephesians 5, you see that Paul says that this mystery is profound and that he's talking about marriage and that it refers to Christ and the church.
Yeah.
Meaning when God created marriage, he created it as a symbol or even a sacrament to reflect God's marriage to what the church would be because of Christ Jesus, right? And so if it's a symbol that then represents the gospel, it's even more important, right? Because now I want to make sure that I'm honoring this mystery that God made to reflect what his son did.
Yeah.
So that's two. So all of that kind of gives me a reverence for marriage. And then when you add in the fact that, to me, being present at a wedding can often communicate agreement, affirmation, support, even covenantal accountability in some spaces. Like my presence here says I'm going to support, lift up, pray for this union.
Yeah.
And so to me, my presence in the room can communicate something that I don't actually want to be communicated because I can't support it.
Yeah.
That is good. That right there is good. And that's how the majority of us probably would feel. I shouldn't say the majority of us, but that's a great point. Let's go.
I can't affirm it. I can't. If I pray for it, I'm praying that God breaks it up. I'm not praying that you get what I'm saying?
I'm sorry, that was funny. I'm praying that God breaks it up if I pray for it. Okay, because I'm quite sure a lot of people feel like that. But go ahead.
Like I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, I'm pretty sure you want to hear my thoughts.
I know them, but go ahead.
Okay.
They do.
Okay. Well, so it's not that I don't agree with everything that you just said, because I 100% agree with everything you just said. I think sometimes for me, the issue is when Christians approach this issue as if it is utter sin to attend a wedding that's of the same sex, like a same-sex marriage, when the Bible doesn't say if you go to a wedding or an event that celebrates same-sex love, you're necessarily in sin. Now, I do think that all disobedience to God is sin, right? And so I do think that if God doesn't want you to go there, like personal conviction, I think that's sin, right? But I think the issue.
Okay, let me stop right here. To him that knoweth to do right and do it not, to him it is a sin. The sin of offense, right hand offended, just different things like that. He's walking a tight line here. But I do want to make sure we bring that out and let you know he's walking a tight rope here. But let's go.
And I think that we all can agree with it's a wisdom thing.
Yes.
Right? It's a wisdom issue, right? Because we already
it's like going to the club. Is going to the club sin? Not necessarily.
Right.
But is it wise?
It's not. So
great point.
And the reason why it's not wise is because we've already established what a wedding is and what God calls a wedding, right? We know that our participation at this event would be, in a lot of ways, communicating to the public that I agree with this. It makes it confusing. It makes your allegiance to Jesus muddy to some people. It has the potential to do that. And so, I think this is my own personal conviction, because I do think that we look at this situation as black and white. So when Alice Abed came out and people was like, "You're in sin. Let's take all your ministry off of radio and all of this stuff," it's like, come on, have you thought about this deeply? Because I think that it's possible, and this might ruffle a little feathers, right? I think that it's possible for a believer to seek the Lord, and I do think that there is a way for the Lord to allow somebody to go to a wedding that's same sex.
Okay.
Now I want him to explain that, and I believe the explanation is coming, because there's, like I said, there's a greater conversation here.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, you about to ask a question?
Just to flesh that out.
So, to paint a picture, right? I'll give you an example. Because of my allegiance to Jesus, because of my convictions, because of my theological principles and truths that I stand on and I live by, if my sister got engaged to another woman and she came to me and said, "Would you?"
And his sister's with a man.
My sister's married to a man. This is hypothetical, right?
Preston got a gay sister. We ain't never known that part.
No.
Did she read Gay Girl?
Or my brother or my uncle, somebody that I had a deep relationship with, came to me and said, "Would you come to my wedding?" I already know my first instinct would be like, no, because of my beliefs, right? But at the same time, I think, and the reason why my first answer will be no is because I stand on a theological truth, and I stand on a principle that this gospel is true, and the world gotta align with what I believe. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so that's what I stand on. But at the same time, even though I think God honors that, I also think that God is a relational God who cares deeply, not just about our relationship with Him, but our relationship with one another. And so I don't think that God is this dogmatic, God in heaven, just with these dogmatic rules and saying, I don't care that it's a wrestle, that you are afraid of this relationship being ruined. I do think that God wants us to choose mother and father. He doesn't want us to choose mother and father or any other relationship over Him, because His Bible said so.
Right.
But I do think He wants us to wrestle, because relationship matters, right? And so, for example, right, I think one way in which I can go to a wedding, if I pray and ask the Lord, do you want me to go here? Right? I think it's a possibility that God can say, man, in order for you to go to this wedding, you might have to do some hard things. And I don't think people talk about the hard things as much, right? Because if my sister wanted me to attend her wedding, right? For example, I'm getting there. Bear with me. And she says, I will be really hurt, and I feel like our relationship would be ruined if I look at my wedding pictures and I don't see you. I would have to do the hard thing and say, you know what? Can we have a private conversation? In that private conversation, I would have to tell my sister, whoever it is, I think the only way I can attend your wedding is if two things happen. Is if you accept the fact that if I attend this event, I do not consider this event a wedding. And don't consider it a wedding. This is not a wedding in my eyes. I don't care how beautiful your vows are. I don't care how many tears y'all have.
No, that's going to be a very hard conversation. But I believe that conversation is even provoked by love. I don't think you would have that conversation unless there was a deep commitment there coming out of a deep sense of responsibility. That's a very, yeah. Let's go.
Right? I don't celebrate this with you. And so if you're comfortable with me going there, and me standing in the audience, sitting down in the audience, and not considering this a wedding, okay? So if she says, okay, yes, even though you don't consider it, I still want you to be there. I say, okay, now a second thing has to happen, right? And this is, I would emphasize that this is not for people. This is about my relationship with Jesus, because I made a public proclamation to the world that I serve this God. Going to your wedding kind of makes that public proclamation muddy. And so if you are okay with me going online and saying, I'm attending this wedding that I don't agree with, that I love this person, but I don't love this event, that I care about this person, but I don't care about this. If you are okay with that, then I think I think potentially, because I think the issue is
But who would ever be okay with that?
that's
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there because she did ask a question, because he's getting into the public opinion, and I don't care about public opinion because you can get incarcerated in the prison of public opinion. It's really more about God and what He person. It's about exemplifying Christ in your walk and deeds. I believe that that's ultimately what this is, and even from the spirit of love. And having that hard conversation and stuff like that. I think inviting the world into, well, this is what's going on. It's too much caring about the world. But then there is I think he may be also speaking from a level of an influencer into his community, because their community with the Perrys, they're gonna have they're Christian, so this would make this would challenge their integrity, if you would, with people in that community. And this is all into that council culture, when you have a community who respect you in this regard. Now, I do respect them for having a hard conversation, but it do bring up several other questions that I do want you to consider. Like, if you have a child and this child decides that they have a same-sex attraction, now many of us as parents have either, thought about it somewhere or know someone who's dealt with this. And many times we'll say we'll love the child, we're just not going to we're not going to be with any of those actions, because we believe in God here. But that's one thing that we have to look at here, because he talked about the sister who would hypothetically be in the same sex relationship, wanting to coming to him and saying, if you're not, I don't want to look at my wedding pictures and see that you're not there. And which is why I said that the love that he have for her as his sister would invoke that hard conversation. But could it be possible? Could it be possible that you could, him showing up there, uh, because people know that he supposedly loves God? Could it actually be that level of love that he's showing by showing up for his sister that actually brings somebody to Jesus? Okay, I'm putting that out there because we always get into the optics of things and how different things look to people, and we will miss many times the heart of the thing, which is, it's one thing to say you love somebody, and it's a whole nother thing to walk in what you're saying that you do. It's like saying I love you, but you're shaking your head no. I love you, and you're shaking your head no. It's your actions, and what are your actions. And the ultimate action that we have is when Jesus died on the cross for our sins. Now, that was sacrifice. But many times as Christians, we're not willing to make that sacrifice. And I'm only putting this out here not to say that I would go, because once again, this is a hard conversation. This is a very hard conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. But I believe that this conversation is based on the specificity of the relationship between the Christian and the person who is going. I believe that's what it is. And this can be a few different answers, a few different ways, but I think this is a very thought provoking conversation and definitely needs to be had. Many people, I don't think enough people have this conversation, and this conversation definitely needs to be had. And so I want to ultimately know what your thoughts are, because this is very heavy. This is very heavy. And ultimately just for me to be asked is a no. Most folk who know me not gonna ask me, and then there are several ways I could tell the person, hey, if you're getting married and I love you, you're getting married, I'm not gonna be there. But let's go out to eat, just me and you one day, as brother and sisters, or brother and brother, or whatever, hey, and just explain to them I love you and I'm happy. I'm happy, because this is even how to say that is a challenge, because you still do not want to endorse the sin. And what she said was about the endorsing of it, the supporting of it, the letting them know. And she even went to say, I pray, for showing up saying that you're praying for it, but she praying that they break up. That this is, it's like, anyway, that was a very valid point. But even how you walk that down in the conversations, I want y'all to give me some alternatives to how you could support, or how could you love them, or different ways. What would you do in this situation? Don't just give me a no, I wouldn't go. I want y'all to answer some of these questions that are brought up here because it's a great conversation, and I want you to lend valiant. And for those of you that's just trying to look at this video so you can see, because I know other communities, I may have said some negative things about somebody you idolize. And if you're here for that, just go to another, scroll past the video, instead of trying to attack me personally, because I want to have the conversation. And so let's go ahead and have the conversation. Jump down in the comment sections and let's talk about with the Perrys, and would you attend a gay wedding? Let's go.